everyone's first race back is I think going to be somewhat emotional. With COVID, with this pandemic, with race being canceled, we're all going to have this period in our book that's so similar that we can look in someone else's eyes. And when you line up at that race start and you look to your right and you look to your left and you look behind you, you're going to think, yeah, you've probably been struggling, you've been hurting just like I have. But you're also going to look at them and think, I know what you've been through because we've all been through it.
We rolling?
We are rolling. It is Monday. It's already August. It's August 3rd, 2020. Welcome aboard the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 396.
396, right?
It is 396, right? Yeah, so we're, 2.5 weeks away from episode 400, the 400.
Yep, the big reveal.
Is there a is it a big reveal or something I don't know about then if there's a big reveal?
Remember we did 100, we did 200, we did big things.
Did we? I don't even remember what we did for 100 and 200.
I don't think we did anything.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Hey, yeah, we had a big to do of the 300 last year because the timing worked out great. We were already going to be in Wisconsin for Ironman Wisconsin in September, and it ended up being pretty much just perfect timing. So we rented out a conference room at the Best Western Inn on the Park, which is one of our favorite hotels. We are now sponsored by Best Western Inn on the Park in Madison, Wisconsin. Use discount code Crushing Iron for 0% off. But if we're a favorite place, we had a great day. We did the podcast live. We recorded it. We had Jessica Jacobs on, which is one of our co-ops and a former Ironman Wisconsin champion. It was a great day, and then hopefully for 400, we'll have our EPB visit and have our Wi-Fi set up in the hub so we can come to you. Hey, who knows? We may come to you via just audio like we have been for the last 4 years, or we may surprise you and we may come to you live and in color, and you might be able to see our face. Who knows? Could be a great thing. Could be an absolutely horrific thing, depending on how you look at it. But I'm starting my 7-day juice fast right now.
Oh, you're in, huh?
Yeah, I'm in, dude. I've already started.
I don't think you're in a juice fast.
No, I can't juice fast, man. I can't do. Well, I mean, the way my fitness is going right now, I have to be fast at something, so I may as well try a juice fast. So that may be the only kind of the only positive I have coming out of it. But we'll do something, and it'll be fun and exciting, like we hope most of our podcasts are. If it's your first time tuning in, we appreciate you giving us the time. We know you have a lot of options, not just in the podcast world, but in the triathlon world. And while we will definitely cover topics and aspects of all things swim, bike, run, data, how you train, how you maybe shouldn't train, psychology behind the sport, nutrition, race recaps, race previews, we'll have on the occasional guests. We do cover it. Triathlon is our life in a lot of ways. It has to be. We do a triathlon podcast that we've been doing for 4 years now. We coach hundreds of athletes from across the world. So triathlon is our life, but along with that is just life itself. And we're people. And so we cover all kinds of topics. We'll cover the mental, emotional, and physical aspects of the sport. We'll talk about what we're both going through personally sometimes as both coaches and athletes. We'll share our experiences. We'll hopefully give you insight into how to overcome obstacles, or even hopefully avoid obstacles that you and I have both tripped over or ran into in our past years as athletes. And oftentimes we'll also pop into our community, which is on Facebook. You can search Crushing Iron Group and be a part of that. Hop in there and we'll let you in after answer one simple question. A lot of great info in there, but sometimes we even let them drive the subjects of the podcast by listing questions, and we'll go through those in order and try to do the best we can to answer those in a timely manner. But that's it. We don't have any sponsors. We don't do ads. We just want you to be happy and healthy. And if you can take just a few positive things from our podcast and apply them to your daily life, both with training and just, living on this planet, which is sometimes and oftentimes really, really hard, and spend whatever kind of advice we can give into your own form that fits your life in the best way, not just Mike and Robbie's way, but your way, then we will consider that a massive success.
Yeah, we will. And you mentioned it, but we're working on upgrading the cast audio-wise and video-wise, so that should be coming soon, and I'm pretty excited about it. We were looking at different setups yesterday together, and I just think it's going to give us a little bit of a bump in the arm, and it's going to be fun to be in the same room with microphones and recording without being at the mercy of Skype all the time and things like that. So hang with us. We're coming around next level. We're taking it up a notch, we hope.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, there's plenty of notches above where we are right now. So if we can just get a few rungs up, it'll seem like we've gone from, copper to platinum in like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
But
for sure. What have you been up to
yeah,
then?
we need to keep with our banter. And I'm kind of struggling with that, to be honest, because we've been in separate cities. We wouldn't even talk. We just kind of like, hey, you ready to go? I would be ready on Skype at 10 o'clock Eastern. You'd be on 9 o'clock Central. We just kind of hop on and get going, and we kind of move into our conversation. But recently, obviously since you moved here, we've been having like a pre, what do you call those? Like a pre, you're in
Pre-prod.
pre, yeah, exactly, pre-prod. I'm assuming that is short for pre-production meeting,
Yeah.
um, and chat through life and what's going on in our heads, and it's kind of made us speed into the podcast and I guess the meat of it and our topic we want to cover for the day fairly quickly. And so I don't want to miss out on the banter, but I've obviously enjoyed it. Last Thursday was my favorite podcast I think I've ever done. We had a lot of great feedback from it, but I did find myself kind of wavering there at the end. I felt like I was bonking. I had put a lot into the middle, and I try a negative split. But say, who knows where we're going to go today? Last week we covered a quote from Michael Phelps in the HBO documentary or series. I don't know exactly how you want to call that, but it was a 1 hour episode from him, and he was talking about he didn't really know who he was outside of being a swimmer. And I went and watched that. I watched that last night, and I also watched Athlete A on Netflix on Saturday night. I don't recommend watching either right before you go to bed. They're not the easiest things to watch.
Really?
Yeah, I mean they're not like feel good stories. They're challenging. They're tough. They're raw, but they're also unfortunately things that are on everyone's mind or people are going through. And I kind of have a personal story that I can relate to both of them. And so, I watched Athlete A on Saturday night. That's a story of the USA gymnastics team and Dr. Larry Nassar, who was
Oh
their
yeah.
doctor. And just I'm not gonna lie, it's a hard watch. It's definitely not for everyone. But as a coach, and as an athlete who has suffered abuse before, it was something that I wanted to watch, just because it makes you, as a coach especially, like it's something that you have to be aware of. It's something you have to be on top of your mind, understand that people are going through these things, but also just the negligence that there was, and it's a whole different story. But and then I also watched obviously Way to Gold, which I said before we referenced last Thursday about Michael Phelps. And it's not just a Michael Phelps episode. That's something that I hadn't researched like exactly what the whole thing was about, but it was just the mental health of high performance athletes. It had like 7 or 8 different Olympic athletes, and obviously as a coach, but also as an athlete, someone who struggled with depression and anxiety and previous thoughts that are very very negative and dark. I wanted to watch it, and obviously it also kind of spilled over again into the responsibility or lack thereof of the U.S. Olympic Committee and the federation itself. And yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't help me sleep any better. But it just brought up things for me again, both as an athlete and a coach. And I think one of the biggest kind of things that it brought to me, not just from a personal standpoint, obviously I've been there. There are a lot of things that I shared that in kind of my weekly email to our team this week, but I won't go that route because I think I've shared that before on our podcast, and who knows, we may end up going there anyway over the course of this conversation. But the biggest thing that stuck out to me was just the responsibility that you have as a coach. I've been doing this for 10 or 15 years, and the responsibility that you have as a coach, as a person who, no matter what you are, if you're a coach to a little league team, if you're a coach in professional sports, like especially like depending on what age and what they're going through, like you are looked at in a different manner. It's very much the same way that a teacher is. And you have an opportunity, you almost have an obligation to, not almost, you do. You have an obligation to be a positive influence and a positive force in these people's lives. And when someone chooses you as a coach, they're more than likely not just choosing you as someone to help them get from point A to point B quicker or healthier. They need you as a life advocate. And that is something that I don't want to spend the whole podcast talking about today, but I as a coach, I coach 10 or 11 other athletes that are also coaches. And I know a lot of athletes are have aspirations to be coaches one day and would like to be coaches because, there is a lot of hoopla surrounding it. It is incredibly enriching and rewarding to be a part of an athlete's journey. For someone to say, I choose you. I choose you, Mike Riley, as the person that I want to guide me and get me from this fitness level to this fitness level, and to cross this, finishing line faster than before, and to guide me along the way, and to keep, my negative thoughts at bay, and to, remove the stress that is having to create my own plan and the ebbs and flows of life. And, I'm choosing you, the person and the coach, to help me do this. And if you frame it that way, it's a lot. But you should take it very personally. It's not just swim, bike, run. It's not just basketball. It's not just football. And I get it that, on certain levels and, high performance levels, it can be about that. But there was also something that stuck out to me in the Weight of Gold documentary, was that if you only make it about that and you neglect the other ones, that once that's gone, then what is left? And, one of the things that, I really drive home with our athletes is it's not balance. It's just simply, the mental and emotional aspect of the sport and of life is paramount. It is huge. It should be number one, that your self-care is number one. Triathlon should always be way, way, way down the list. And, if you're so just briefly, I just wanted to mention that today. And if you're a coach and you're looking to get in the sport, or you're already in the sport, and you're only comfortable talking about just swimming and cycling and running and zone 2 and tempo work and why you should do track workouts and this stuff, that I feel like you're limiting your education. I don't think that's why I have not a problem with, but that's why I take some issue with so many online certification courses that are virtual, that they don't even like dip their toe into the psychological aspects that is coaching. The conversations you need to be able to have, that you need to be vulnerable enough to experience with the athlete. That then they also don't talk about the mental health and the emotional health of the coaches. Coaches hear a lot. If you're a coach that has an open dialogue, that is that really encourages an open line of communication with your athletes, that line of communication is very rarely filled with triathlon. It is 95% of the time filled with life. Because if you break down the percentages of what happens to an athlete and what athletes are going through on a day-to-day basis, those percentages fly, because 95% of their day is life. The other 5% is triathlon. And then sometimes it can be, the percentages can be a little more, closer together, maybe 50-50. And even sometimes, and that while that's okay, sometimes you actually need to bring athletes to kind of, distance themselves and make sure that triathlon isn't the number one thing in their life all the time. They should be number one. Their family, their happiness, their health, those should be number one, and change perspective. But it's hard. The whole thing is hard because life is hard. And when you're coaching athletes and you have this responsibility to them, just not as a person who can help them perform and get to a certain level of fitness, it's also your responsibility to benefit them outside of what they do, to help push them in a direction that's going to allow them to be the best father or mother that they can be, the best sibling, the best, friend, the best, at their workplace. Like, those are the things that if you're a coach and you're not paying attention to those things, or those things aren't important to you, or you're not comfortable pushing people in that direction, then you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing your athletes a disservice. Because triathlon isn't life. Sport is not life. It is something that we use to hopefully complement our life in a positive way. And it's a tremendous responsibility. And I think one of the biggest things that athletes should take away from, and that they oftentimes forget, is there are so many people on this planet that would love to have a coach. A life coach, a professional coach, a triathlon coach. They would love to be able to afford it. They would love to be able to make ends meet to do it. They would love to feel like they are cleared and don't have, any guilt to put money towards that. If you have the opportunity to have a coach, if you have the opportunity to have someone in your corner, and you have someone like that's willing to go above and beyond to make sure that you're doing what you need to do, that truly genuinely cares, then don't take it for granted. Because the sad truth is, if we think about it, we're not always going to have a coach. And if you think about that relationship and the importance of it, like there's just a lot that goes into it. And I would hope that, to an extent at some point, USAT and, the Ironman U certifications, like, they're good to a level, but nothing can prepare you for actually coaching a person, not coaching an athlete, but coaching a person, and the things you will hear and the conversations you have to have, and the things that you should welcome, and there are things that are hard to teach, and I think that's probably why they don't get covered in a weekend course or an online thing, because you have to work hard at even being able to have those conversations. I feel very, very fortunate that the best probably accreditation I could have is being someone in recovery. Not because I only train people in recovery, but because going through that process and going through the dark times that I hit and going to rehab forced me to put myself in a place to where I'm 100% comfortable talking about my flaws. I'm 100% comfortable talking about a dark past and my rough times and crappy things that I've done before, and also working through my feelings. Like I'm fine with that. I welcome it. I encourage it, and my athletes know that. They know I'm not one of these people who is going to pretend like I'm perfect or pretend like life is always fine, or whoa, we don't need to talk about these difficult things. Like, let's just get back to zone 2 work, baby. Let's get back to, let's just do some hill repeats and that'll solve it. That's not the answer. And so I feel very fortunate I'm a much different coach now to an extent before I got sober and before I am now, but it's just hard. And I think that's just important to know if you're a person who wants to be a coach or you're a coach yourself. Like, I think that's something that you have to take into account. And obviously not every athlete's going to be that way. I've worked with athletes that I've worked with for like 7 or 8 years, and we've rarely had a conversation that's not been triathlon or scheduling related, but then some of them have worked for 6 or 8 months, and I know everything about them, or I know things about their lives that no one else does. And so it's just a level of preparedness, it's a level of vulnerability, and it's also a level of confidence that athletes need to have in you, that you truly do care, not just about their race performance. Or that, like, I work with so many athletes that I've had former experiences where they'll say to me, like, I just don't want to let you down, or I don't want to disappoint you, or, I'm sorry. And it's like, first of all, like, you're never going to disappoint me, or like, unless you do something like totally egregious with life or the legal system, like, and even then, like, I'm just going to be like, hey, let's move through. We all make mistakes. Like, that's not the relationship you should have. Like, it's not a triathlon and triathlon coaching, it's not about, with the athlete and the coach, it's not about a dictatorship, it's about a partnership. It's about encouraging athletes to know what they're doing, to be empowering, and empowering them to know and take ownership over that. And you can't do that without trust and without communication. And you have to have those things. But that's also a place where we're taking a step backwards in our world, I think, is the level of communication that people encourage, and the level of communication that people are willing to do and are even comfortable or know how to do, because we rarely ever sit in front of people anymore, and talk about ourselves and talk about our feelings and really drag things out of ourselves that we're just so eager to really talk about and open up. We just don't, because they're going to judge me, or they're going to have beer for me. Like I said, like, my greatest accreditation probably for being a coach is that I have failed more times than I can count. And I'm more than welcome to talk about them, and I don't have anything to hide. And that vulnerability, I think, is very helpful in coaching, and knowing that I'm coming to you as a person who's looking at you eye to eye. I'm not above you. I'm not someone that's better than you. We're doing this together. And I think that we need coaches in every aspect of our life. We need therapists, we need life coaches, we need professional coaches to get better at your job. It's everyone needs an advocate. If it's not a coach, you need a friend. You need a buddy, a pal, someone who can hold you accountable, but also somebody who can be like, hey, I know you're not okay, even though you keep telling me you are. Give it to me straight. Like, let me know what's really going on in your mind. And I think we all need that. 35 minutes later, Mike, are you still there?
What? I'm sorry, what's going on?
Sorry. So typical me. I don't want to talk about
Man.
this much today, but let me go ahead and riff for about 20 minutes, so I apologize.
Right. Yeah, here we go, man. You better slow down, pace it a little
I
bit.
know.
We were just talking about me being, what was my new title? The love
the smile
coordinator?
coordinator.
Smile coordinator. Because, well, I mean, I think about this, man. Like, we talk about a world of communication and how easy it is to communicate. And I think people are lonelier than ever because it's always this one way, tactile sort of communication that we have all the time. And it can really burn you down and wear on you. And like what you're saying, I really think that one of the best performance enhancers is to have someone that understands and allows you to free sort of what's on your mind and let your emotions out without judgment and that sort of thing. Because to me, I'm such, as you know, and if you listen to these podcasts for a long time, I am very in tune with the mind as far as like competitive nature and more so releasing it. I've talked about before how like I can get super tense a day or two before the race and really nervous, and then for whatever reason race morning is when I'm at my calmest throughout the race period. I'm kind of like, oh, so I accept this is what's going on right now, but how do we get to that? And I think that once if you're coaching, I think there's just such this thing, I mean, as a parent, I'm sure that you have to, or a teacher, you have to help someone learn things themselves, right? So I think this idea of a coach has always had a little bit of a kind of a confusing description, because it's like you're not there to tell them, especially because we're working virtually a lot of times, how to pedal their bike all the time. And like you think of coaching, you're right on, hands on or whatever, but like as we get to be adults, we should kind of have the mechanics and things down. It's just now a matter of being able to be free. And we talked about that in one of the recent podcasts, is how do we be free and race free? And I think that unloading emotionally or psychologically, or being able to talk to somebody, or understanding, especially in this world where there's so many things going on. We talked about right before the podcast, but I have a tendency to always try to think back to when I was an athlete and how that process went. And man, when we were practicing, we weren't like running over to check our phones and everything like that and worried about what was being posted or something. It was really this in the moment thing. And that was I'm sure it was difficult for coaches to keep attention of athletes back then, but now I got to imagine it's just through the roof, as far as being able to keep people focused and whatnot. And so, yeah, I do think what you're doing, and it's so much more than putting a workout in and talking about the sport all the time. There's just so many different levels that if you can kind of unlock the brain and just be content and be in yourself, and that's just become part of coaching. And that's what you talk about, life coaches and everything now. That's what they do. They kind of help you sort it out. And I think that's why I look at you as kind of a sorted outer type of guy a lot of times.
I like that new title. I am the sorter outer. Yes,
and I'm the
please
director
hire me
of
for
smiles.
your next sorter outer, director of smiles. No, like I think that's one of the biggest areas I think of improvement for many of us, and even for me, is that so many athletes and people look at coaches or teachers to give them the answers and show them the way, or make them faster or make them happy. That is not your job. Your job is to push them in a direction that allows them and gives them the opportunity in a healthy and positive way that may challenge them while feeling supported to do that on their own, to be successful on their own, to feel empowered to make decisions that they know and they feel are right because they have the confidence to do so. Like, you shouldn't do workouts that you have no idea what to do. Like last week on our weekly Zoom call, I literally went through how I would build a specific athlete's training block for 5 weeks from scratch, live in front of athletes, the workouts I would choose, why I would choose to do them. And I had a couple coaches on there, and they're like, I appreciate you doing that. Not many people coaches would do that. Like, it's some like intellectual property of secrecy. Like, this isn't me. I'm not behind the scenes trying to create the new iPhone 14 and protecting that for some unveiling in like 2 years. Like, that's not how it works. But what you want as a coach is you want for athletes to feel like they can work on their own, because when you think about it, like, that is what makes the journey so important and so valuable, because it's yours. It's not one that you share. It's not one that you have to give so much credit to somebody else. It is yours. And you can only feel like it's yours if you take an incredible amount of ownership over it, and you force yourself to be accountable, and you understand why you're doing things, and you know the need, and you have the desire to fulfill and be a part of this process. That's what makes the journey what it is, because it's one that only you can take. Yes, you can have coaches along the way, or nutritionists, or physical therapists and buddies and group training, team. Like, you can have those things there, that they are there occasionally walking by your side, occasionally dragging you ahead, or sometimes pushing you forward. But the only constant, the only common denominator of the entire journey, the entire path, the entire, training block towards race day is you. And that's what makes the finish line so great. Like, as a coach, like when I'm there, or I'm at a team race, or we have a ton of athletes, and I always stand in kind of the same place. I like to stand like way past the finishing line. I'm not even there to see them finish. I'm tracking them. I can hear them. I know they're coming, but I like to stand like 20 feet or 30 feet beyond the finish line. I don't like to be the first person they see. I like for them to see their family and their friends, and all these things. But when you and as over the course of the day, like, as a coach who's tracking a lot of athletes, and usually like, if you've seen me, like, I'm like insanely stressed out. Like, it's the most stressful day. And so, like, while I hate this time of year where there's like no racing going on, my Saturdays and Sundays have been incredibly less stressful. Like, I am not like glued to Iron Track worrying about, where's the next update and this, but you're not worried about their time. You're worried about the last chapter of their book, because you know what they've written. You were there when they picked up the pen. You were there when they wrote, the first things in their book that they wanted to accomplish. You were worked through them with each chapter. You saw what was going on. You saw their life unfold. You saw their health improve. You saw them make breakthroughs. You saw that you were there through the injuries. You were there through the meltdowns. You were there through, the lulls in motivation. You were there through the divorce. You were there through the job loss, or you were there through the marriage, or the birth of a new child. Like, you're there. You hear about it. You're there, like, in the middle of it. You're not a person in the book, but you get to watch it be written. And race day, for so many people, and this is also the reason, like, going back to like the Way to Goal documentary, is like there's this huge void and depression afterwards because the book is over, is that over the course of race day, you have all these, like, bent up thoughts and feelings of kind of going back and looking back through the year of how the book and how their journey has gone, and all you want for them is for that last chapter to just be outstanding, for the experience to be what they deserve, for the joy that they deserve to have, and the triumph that they just really, really need to be, of what they've overcome and what they've done and what they've accomplished. Like, that's what you want. And for them, it's a finish line, and to crossing it. So you get nervous and you watch them finish, and you don't see emotion over a time. Like, it's some of it's time related. Don't get me wrong. Like, they want to accomplish something they never accomplished before, but that's just like, that's thrown in the middle. It's in the middle of the collage of life, that is everything that they've done and what they've sacrificed and what they've done and their total transformation. And you see them, and you don't just see, you know, Mike Tirali, 11:33 Ironman, whatever. You see, like, all these emotions, like, be stripped and, like, gone, and the book is over, and it's everything you want from an ending. We have all seen movies and read books where we're like, dude, that was like a great movie until the last 10 minutes and it absolutely sucked. And the last 10 minutes decide if you like the movie or not. And you want that for the athletes, because it's a journey, and it's a life. And when you give them the ownership to do it on their own, and when you make them take this, then usually the outcome is better too, because you want them to work on a level of, you don't need me. Like, I've had athletes before, like, hey, I'll pay you to come to a race with me that you're not going to be at. No, like, listen, I'll take the cash, whatever, but I don't need to be there. Like, me being at a race venue, if I haven't done my job before that, then that's on me, because there's nothing I'm going to be able to do on race day that you can't do on your own. Like coaches shouldn't want to be depended upon. That we're the only person that can give answers. That you should feel paralyzed in doubt and insecurity to do something on your own because what if coach says no, or what if that's going to offend coach, or he's the only one that knows what to do, or I can't function without him telling. Like that's not how it works. Like, dude, we're here to support you. We're here to walk side by side. We're in this together, and that is also what makes race day so awesome and such an incredible overall experience, because it's not just result based. It's life based, and that is the journey that we're on. Like, our everything we do in life is not just results based, it's life based, and there has to be a focus on that. And if there is a focus on that, then what you get out of the race is so much more than a finishing medal and a shirt or a jacket or a really sweet cropped picture of your future Facebook profile. It can stay with you forever, and it stays with you forever because it's become a fabric of who you are, because you did it, not your coach did it. You did it because you do the work. The coach just lays breadcrumbs along the way that you hopefully follow, but you're the one that ends up making the meal and doing the deal.
Yeah. Well, can I just put that into a picture one time? Because
Breadcrumbs.
the breadcrumbs. There's the photo on our Facebook group, the public group, is still the picture of me finishing at Wisconsin and with you and I together, holding up our fingers like we just were number one or something like that. But that day, I mean, you talk about, I mean, that was 3 years before we even started this podcast, right?
I think so.
Yeah, something like 3 years before the podcast even started. It was the race you coached me up, and it was the classic moment of I was coming around the state capitol, and I could hear your voice echoing through the buildings. You got
Oh
it,
man.
Mike, go, or whatever. And I was looking around for you. I couldn't see you anywhere, and it was just, I don't know. I guess you were standing on a street pole or a light
Yeah,
pole.
dude, I was like 3 sheets to the wind by then too, but it's like 10.
So I came around the corner, and that finish line was amazing. And of course, you set a picture of your Facebook, and that's the first thing I thought of. Actually, was the one that I've been using since 2013 on our group. It was you and I standing there, and you were 3 sheets to the wind, and I was 40 sheets to the.
I was rosy cheeked, baby. I was rosy cheeked.
Yeah, looking good. Check that out. But speaking of races too, since I moved to Chattanooga, every time I've been to Chattanooga, well, not every time, but most times I've been to Chattanooga in my life before moving here were for races. So every time I come over to your house, I'm driving over the Market Street Bridge, and I look out to my right and I see the river, and I always just kind of in my head see swimmers, and it always just, I mean, every time I go over that river, it makes me think of the Ironman swim and how it just gets in my blood a little bit, and I just can't wait, man. It's just like, it's driving me crazy to not have any races and see that energy and feel the excitement of the swim, because that's always my favorite, the morning, and go down there and either be involved or be watching it and see people get out of the water and see their face. And I just kind of wanted to actually kind of go down a little psychological path with you while you're at it. Like, what, as a coach, say, let's say that, I don't know about Louisville, a race when you had maybe like 15, 20 people there, and like how psychologically you go through the morning. What are you thinking about before the swim? And I know it's been well documented that you're not really relieved until everyone's off the bike, but in the morning,
I'm not.
it's sort of like that. But I thought it might be kind of interesting to hear what you think about when you got 15 athletes jumping in the river or whatever, and then how you think about it in terms of, okay, what am I looking for here, and what am I going to say, if anything? Or are you just kind of there to just be there?
Rule number 1, don't let them see how absolutely nervous you are. That is rule number 1. Because I know how the day is going to go. I've done it so many times. I've been there for so many races and watched hundreds of athletes cross finish lines. Like, I know what the day is going to bring. I usually have a hard time sleeping beforehand. And you get up and because what you want for them is because that optimism and excitement and even anxiety, like it's more antsiness, but their anxiety, they're eager, they just want to get in the freaking water. Like that's it. Just like, let me just jump in, because then I can start the race, because the buildup that causes the most, nervousness and anxiety for most people. It's like, just get me in the water. Like, just let me do it. It's like, yeah, the week before your a wedding. It's just like, let's get married already. Like, can we just get this? Like, there's so many things going on. Just like, let me get in the water and do my thing. And so like the number one thing for me is like, just be cool. Just be cool and smooth, and make sure that they're calm as well. And because like everything is mirrored. If they see you, that's also why you've never seen me like be like, I'm not a rah coach. Like, I don't carry signs that are like crush it, or you're doing it, or rah or you're do this, like you're kicking butt and taking names, like you got this, go kill it. I'm always very, very even. Because I think that's important, because it's such a long day. You're gonna have highs and lows. So to start a race, like I'm always, let's have fun, let's have some smiles, go have fun. That's what I say. Go have fun and be patient. Like that's generally my conversation in my own head. All right, Robbie, have fun, be patient. Because as a coach, and I say this to myself over and over and over again all the time, like none of it matters. Seriously, none of it matters. 0% of it matters. Like, yes, do I get like a huge sigh of relief when the last athlete is off the bike? Absolutely. But that has nothing to do with performance. That is just overall safety. Like I do. I'm a nervous wreck while athletes are on the bike, and it's not because I'm worried about their bike time. It's because the bike is just is the one part of the course where you're so far away from, and there are cars and all other athletes. They could have wrecks. Like, that's what makes me nervous. So when I know they get off the bike, then I can kind of get excited that the race is about to happen because it's close to me. But even then, like, you look at the whole race, and especially races that are like really, really, really long, 70.3 is Olympics. Like, if you're looking at for them to do well, or if you they have a time in their mind, or you think they might be capable of this, and how is the whole day going, and like, dude, none of it matters until the back half of the marathon, and the back half of the half. None of it matters. Nothing.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to wrap your brain around that from when you
Always
walk
comes
out of
back
your.
to that.
It is. What's the truth? And even though
I know.
even if I'm not there and I'm on iron track, and they're doing like a 2-lap swim after the first lap, I'm like, oh man, I wonder what's wrong. I wonder if they're feeling okay. And because it could be something as little as like the mat is at the wrong place. We're like, we see this all the time, like especially if you're tracking athletes on 70.3 Ironman run courses. It's never really that their splits are that off. It's just that where they put the timing mats made 1 mile split significantly shorter. Maybe it's like a 0.80, so it's made their split much faster. You think they're killing it, and then the next one, they have, they have a super long split, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're fading. What's happening? And it's like 1.3 miles. And so I think there's just so much, to take into account, that you have to be patient, you have to be calm, and you have to focus on, like just being calm, because it's such a long day. You have to be even. Yes, you want to be excited about the prospect of the day and what could happen, but you just kind of need to be cool, hopefully.
That's going to be my new thing on Training Peaks. If somebody says they had a bad swim, I'm just going to say, it doesn't matter. It's all about the back half of the Ironman marathon.
Dude,
it doesn't matter.
It does. Like, you just have to be calm. And like, especially the beginning of the day, though, because everyone, like, that's why the swim start is so exciting, because it is this focus of optimism and excitement, and the journey's about to start, and here I go, that you don't want to get too overamped. You just kind of want to keep your breath, and be calm and be smooth, and understand that, like, it's a long day, and just because something great or terrible might happen in the next 30 minutes doesn't mean that that's going to dictate how the last 30 minutes of the day goes. I think it's important, in terms of negative splitting things, and just like not getting caught up or wrapped up in how things, are in life. Is that, just because it's like our days, you have a bad 30 minutes, or you spill your first cup of coffee, and you're like, oh, the day's ruined. Here we go. And you're like, dude, you're going to be awake for like 12 more hours. There's
Unless
a whole
you take
lot
a
left.
nap.
Right. Yeah. Well, I wish. It's like, go take a nap and take everything out and make sure that it's okay.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say about that, man.
But I mean, I think it's important for.
I agree.
For athletes to focus on, in terms of, because especially when we get back, because when everybody goes back to racing, everybody everyone's going to be so jacked up and have so many thoughts and have so many expectations because they haven't been able to race and they wanted to do this, and they've been working so hard, or it's the first one back that's going to mean so much, and they wanted to race this last year and they couldn't race it, so now here they are. Is that there's going to be even more pressure on top of these events. There's going to be even more pressure people are going to put on themselves, and so you're just going to have to rein it in. Even now, that's why so many athletes get burnt out or have totally fallen off the wagon in terms of training, is because they get so hyped and so in and so focused on the race being closed, is that you put yourself, because, and that's also the thing, like they talked about in this Way to Go documentary, is you put yourself in this area of the only thing that matters is this. So it becomes your singular focus of all things in life. Every minute you're awake, every step you take, every training session you have, every meal you choose to prepare, it's all centered around this one day, this training cycle, this build for this event and this day. And so you everything else becomes totally outweighed and unprioritized, so that it's just kind of left suffering by the wayside. And when those races are canceled or postponed, I genuinely feel like, and this isn't true for everyone, but I genuinely feel like so many athletes aren't so pissed. Yes, does everyone want to race? Absolutely. We all want to race. We all don't want what's going on to be going on. We all want to get back out there, and we cannot freaking wait to get out there and hop in the water and start our race. But I think a lot of people are also just as, if not more mad, because now they're like, well, now the rug's been pulled out from under me. This has been my life. This has been my focus. This has been, all I've been able to think about. Now what do I have? I've totally, over prioritized this certain area of my life and given it way too much power over my day and over my overall happiness. And I put way too much energy into it that now it's zapped and taken away, and I have nothing to show for it. And I've just got all this other stuff that I don't really have a relationship with, because I haven't been paying it attention. I haven't been giving it, and nurturing it and doing the things I need to make it a positive experience for everything. And now I'm just kind of left with, meh. That's why people are even extra pissed, because they find themselves in no man's land. And that is what's also making this time, so hard for so many other reasons. So when people get back to racing, it is going to be like magnified by 1,000. Like we've already talked about this before multiple times, is that everyone's first race back is going, I think going to be somewhat emotional, in that it's because if you think about it, kind of going back to what I was talking about in terms of the book, is the book's going to be so much longer, and it's going to have this certain period that you could have 30 athletes lining up to go on a wave, and all 30 have these the end of the story coming up in this race day, but we're all also going to have a very similar couple chapters, which while you could argue that, well, we all have kind of similar chapters in our lives, because we're all not that different. But with COVID, with this pandemic, with race being canceled, we're all going to have this period in our book that's so similar that we can look in someone else's eyes, and they say, you don't judge someone because you don't know what they're going through. When you line up at that race start and you look to your right and you look to your left and you look behind you, you're going to think, yeah, you've probably been struggling, you've been hurting just like I have, but you're also going to look at them and think, I know what you've been through, because we've all been through it. Everyone, you're going to have this this woven understanding into the start of a race that is the this thing that we've all been dealing with, which is, I think, going to make it even hopefully a greater experience, right? It's going to make people more grateful and more thankful for the opportunity to race, and it's going to have them a different perspective on just having the opportunity itself, and that hopefully will lead them to having a best performance. But it's also going to, if you think about like using the Olympics, right, as an example of you train for 4 years, you put your whole life into this 4 years training cycle of the Olympics, and all you have is one day. Like I was telling you earlier, while we were sitting on the deck, that the skater said that she showed up to the Olympics, and this isn't like a huge spoiler, so if you haven't watched it, it's nothing like that's going to spoil the whole documentary for you. But she was like, you go to the Olympics and you dream about it for 4 years, and you get selected and you make the team and you go to the opening ceremony, and it's everything you've ever dreamed of. It's overwhelming. The experience is something that you'll never forget. Highlight of my life. Those type of things. And then the day of your event, you hop on this bus and you take it from the Olympic Village to whatever venue you're about to compete on, and you're on this bus, and all you can think of is that the next time I get back on this bus, heading back to the Olympic Village, everything that I've trained for, everything that I've sacrificed, all the work that I've put in, everything that I've wanted to happen, my life will have been decided for me, and those will have come to an end the next time I'm on this bus. And the pressure of that, the enormity of that, and again, like this isn't a 4-year cycle, but again, it's not the Olympics, but again, it's all things are relative to the amount of pressure you put on ourselves. So you got athletes who want revenge on courses, or athletes who qualified for Kona that don't get to go this year, and they're going to get to go next year. Like, you have all these things falling into place that are going to make it so hard for so many athletes, because they're going to walk up and they're going to wake up that morning, the alarm's going to go off, they're going to grab their stuff, they're going to walk down to the race start, and they're going to think, I've been training for this for the last 2 years. And that is going, for some people, going to make them incredibly hopeful, with shows of gratitude and an awesome positive perspective on just being thankful that they're there. But for some people, the amount of pressure that they're going to have put on themselves, not just for that day, but that's going to have led up to that day over a year or a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is, many athletes are going to absolutely crumble below that kind of pressure. And it's pressure that we put on ourselves to be great, to be perfect, to show that we can do it, to not waver in our commitment, to never show, chinks in our armor of motivation, to not have these. But that's why it's also so important to, through these difficult times and through every time really, to listen to yourself and what your body needs, because if you ignore it for a long period of time, and you keep throwing weight on the shoulders of your life in terms of the expectations and the pressure you want to carry, eventually on a day you're going to crumble. And it might not be before race day, it might be on race day, which is where you see so many athletes crumble under the pressure that is race day. They're having a great race, or one thing goes wrong, and all of a sudden it's a cascade effect of negative energy that's being brought upon them by all the pressure, all the expectations, and the fact that if this doesn't happen for me today, then I am nothing, and I have nothing, and then I will have wasted 2 years of my life. But you can remedy that by how you approach the journey leading up to it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I'm one of the kind of guys that almost does that on purpose, because I have slowly been layering new pressure on myself during this pandemic, as I've been hurt, so I've been working mainly on my swim. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be a top 20% swimmer, or 15 maybe, or whatever. I've got that going. I want to be that guy. I want to do this. I've been building out my body, trying to balance things out, and then to add insult to injury, I just named my new Wi-Fi network Kona. And I'm going to be like thinking about that every time I sign on. But no, I really do think that's interesting. I wanted to, like, maybe this could be a good topic for next time, if we can kind of pull out, some the good things that happened because of this pandemic or something, the positives. And I know we cover that a little bit, but I was kind of just thinking about that. And then one of the things that kind of overlaps with the pressure is that I've noticed that this gives me 365 extra days to practice Tri-calc without any kind of
That's right.
any kind of real pressure. But so I'll be an expert by then. Actually, no, I don't use it that much anymore. I kind of forgot I had the app, but yeah, man, that's really an interesting point, because it almost does add like you said, a relative comparison to the Olympics. Now it's like, well, it's now all of a sudden we've got a full year and 2 years in between an event or whatever, and that sort of does mount it and make it the pressure build, unless you can kind of just chill on it all and realize that unless you're a person that, the reason I brought that up is because I almost feel like sometimes I'm a better person when I'm fighting out of a corner. It's one of those things that just kind of, like, I just put my head down and I like that pressure sometimes. But also, if I'm calm, maybe that's the reason I like pressure, is because maybe you know, if you're calm and you can kind of see people, there's a weird element, right? And I mean, you've noticed it, I'm sure, in the race morning, or you're standing next to some people in your age group or whatever, and you can just see this. Some people are like, you almost get the sense that they work so damn hard and they were like on fire all summer, all fall, and then they're at the race, and then suddenly the moment feels too big for them. You
Hmm.
know, you can see that in people. And it's like, hey, how's it going this morning? "Nah, nothing. I'm just like, and they're just like getting their goggles straight, and they're just
They're
like,
scared.
the goggles are on like 25 minutes before the race, and that's like, oh, dude, just chill out for a minute, man, because like, there's nothing you can't. That's my biggest thing, I think, is like you can't finish the race in the swim. You know what I mean? So it's like the minute you get in there, that you can't like be done. So you gotta be able to like compartmentalize your effort from the get-go, and that starts way before the race, in my opinion, because you can just imagine how much energy people burn while they're waiting for that swim line to move.
You see people that are paralyzed by fear and literally scared with everything to lose because they put so much pressure on themselves. The only way for them to even conceive that the past year or the past however long has been any kind of success is for them to achieve this one result for the day. And that's it. Any other result is epic failure.
Oh man,
Those are
what a pressure,
the
man.
guys. I know, but those are the guys you love to race because if one thing goes wrong, then the thoughts just creep in. I'm not going to
Mm.
do it. I'm not going to. It makes you make bad decisions. The person you don't want to race is the one who is like with nothing to lose, racing free and having fun. Because for that person, nothing gets in your way. You're going to make good decisions. You're going to have fun doing it. You're going to race free and you're going to be relaxed. Those are the kind of people who race so well and perform so well because they're having fun and they're smiling along the way. It's the ones that are so tense and so stressed about the event itself or what the result could lead for them or who they're going to disappoint or are they going to disappoint themselves or are they going to feel worth it because everything they do is every pace and every result is attached to making their results better, which is making themselves feel better, making their worth higher. Then like the just think about it, like as you say it, like it's insane to think that way, but so many people do. So many people think that like that everything that they do in terms of triathlon and racing, that is a direct it impacts them directly into like who am I and what and am I even worth it or can I even do this or am I fast enough or am I fooling myself? It's like there's just so many things wrapped up in it that if you go into these races relaxed and having fun and just ready to do it, then you're going to do it because the, how you end up doing it is because it just is what it is. The day is what it is. It's the journey. It's the mindset. It's the perspective. All those things that bring you happiness and how you've stayed healthy and how you progress and what you've fought through. Like those are all the wins. The daily wins, the wins of the sessions, the weekly wins, the monthly achievements. Add those all up, and those are going to like overarching like outweigh one singular day of what you've been able to do and what you've been able to accomplish. Like we all have bad days, and we all have great days, and we all have all the days in between. It's a sum. Your life is that way too. It's like for me, I know like whenever I die one day, I hope that I have a couple people come to my funeral and they're gonna be like, hey, you know, the dude was a pretty good dude. He messed up some, but when he wasn't messing up, he did a whole lot of great things, and those outweigh the bad. That's it. That's life right there. If you can do if the positive outweighs the negative, that's life. Like you can't expect perfection, and you shouldn't expect perfection on racing or in life to be held to that kind of a standard that you can't have bad days or you can't make mistakes or you're always under a microscope, and if you do, then you're a failure, and who's going to love you and who's going to want you? Good God, like makes me stressed just even saying it out loud. It's
Mm.
like you can't even thinking that way is what thinking is how people think themselves into more stress and more anxiety and more depression and more struggles with who they are and what they need to do to be able to fulfill themselves in a positive way, no matter what sport comes in and out of their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something that I think about with regard to that race pressure and having those goals and having something fall apart maybe early in the swim or on the bike or whatever. So you know that your goal that you've set for the last 365 days is probably going to be shot. And I always talk about recalibration, and I think of it, and I think you can transform that into life too. It's sort of like, oh, this day's not going good, and it's going to be the worst day ever. But why not like recalibrate midway through and figure out how to make it okay instead of the worst? You know what I mean? Like, or better, or figure out how you can. And this is from firsthand experience. There was a time when I can't remember if it was last year. The years kind of flow together when you get old, but it's sort of like. As I was going through a race, I had a goal in mind and I knew I was screwed. And instead of like, let's just say for an Ironman, I thought I was going to do something like an hour faster or whatever. Say it's 11:15 or something like that. And I knew at some point that was totally gone. So instead of saying, hey, well, why don't you just shoot for 11:45 and figure out how to make that happen and make it a solid day instead of just being like, it's over, and then coming in with a 12:15, you know? And I think that those things are really possible, even within a race, if you can kind of just figure out, okay, look, I can't hold this, so why do I keep trying? Let's just figure out something in the middle. And I hate to say salvage, because whatever this particular race I was thinking of, if I would have just done that, I would have probably been, maybe top 10 in my age group or something like that as I look back. Because you never know, like we always talk about the conditions of the day, and you don't know what's going on, and maybe everyone else is having the similar struggles. You just don't know. So you have to be able to adjust. And I think that's relevant in training. I think it's relevant in everything. It's sort of like some days you got it and you just go, but other days you don't have it. So it's like, instead of throwing it away, how can we kind of moderate it and make it better, but maybe not the greatest as it's going to be, but just be somewhere in the middle and just do the best you can with what you got, rather than throwing everything out of throwing the whole bucket out just because you're not going to hit target A. Go for target B. And sometimes target B is very competitive.
Yeah, and contact your nearest smile coordinator, Mike Tarali.
And I'm here to give you smiles. But it goes both ways. I might need you some days.
That is, he is our love and care relationship manager. I think we get you that title for a tag when we get in the hub. So when people come in, I can escort them to the love and care relationship manager, Mike Tarali.
And if I'm not there that day, you'll know I'm grumpy.
It's exactly.
I won't even show up.
Exactly. But hey, you know what? That was a good one. I enjoyed that. We hope you, our listener, got something out of it. Again, as with all podcasts, we try to deliver it in a way that you can take it for what it is and let it filter through your own life, through your own obstacles, through your own training, through your own goals, and make it your own. This is not a cut and paste podcast. This isn't always applicable to every aspect of your life, but something hopefully can be, or it will be in the future, and you can come back to this and think, hey, that kind of sounded like it might resonate with me, so let me give it a whirl, and hopefully it turns out positively. And if that's the case, then we'll call it a win. So as always, we appreciate it. If you want more info on all the things that we do outside of the small coordinators and love care relationship managers, you can go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things camps, community, and coaching. I would say if you're interested in camps, I would go now, because technical camp sold out this morning. That's next June. It's sold out, and I think we only have 4 spots left for our June volume camp, and then that'll be it. We'll be sold out for camps next year. Again, we usually sell out like 8 or 9 months in advance. This is no different, especially with everyone's year being pretty much already planned. With races being just kind of postponed, deferred to the next year. But hop on there, and if you want more info on coaching, obviously check out that tab. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just need anything in general, you can always reach out to Mike. He is at crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you have any questions for me specifically, you can always reach out to me at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man.
That's all I got.
Let's wrap it up. Thanks for everything. Appreciate it.
As always, see you Thursday. Well, I'll see you in about 5 seconds.
All right. See you, buddy.
See you, dude.